I like having cartoons on. I like having my plushies around me. I like being in between my partner's lap. They'll tell me cute things like, hey, good girl.
Welcome back to Lustcast. This week I'm joined by Pixie Berrie, who is an OnlyFans creator, and we're going to be talking about DDLG relationships. And it's a hugely controversial thing, like maybe the most controversial kink or one of them, especially when it comes to porn as well. So Pixie, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very good, thanks. And thanks so much for joining me. It was really hard to find someone to actually talk about this, so really appreciate you coming on. And
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I hope that we can teach people, what a DDLG relationship is, how to actually go about it. And I'd really like to address some of the myths and misconceptions about DDLG in general, because I think that will open people's eyes a lot.
Of course.
And before we get into that, I just want to say to people, please subscribe, please like, please share, just please, get us to as many people as we can, because it, encourages us to keep making more episodes. So you're actually into DDLG as a lifestyle, or and then it's also your work?
Yes.
And did one come before the other?
The lifestyle definitely came before the content. It was something that I just personally enjoyed. As you can see, I have tons of plushies everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of how I've been since becoming an adult. And then it was okay, well, now that I'm a content creator, I can kind of bring this to the table. This is something that I enjoy. Why not, Yeah,
it's really interesting to me. And it's and especially all the controversy around it just really fascinates me. But I think before we just get into that, let's just talk about what DDLG actually means. So it stands for Daddy Dom Little Girl, is my understanding.
Yes. So,
I think we just hit on why it's controversial right there.
So, obviously people kind of have a distaste for that when they first come across it, because, it's ooh, that sounds a little risky. Which is understandable. 100%. It's understandable.
Yeah.
But the major thing is that it's two consenting adults. It's a part of BDSM. It follows all the same rules: safe, sane, consensual. So I think that automatically eliminates, sort of kind of the undertone of it for it being risky or taboo, because at the end of the day, it's adults who are consenting, and that's it.
Yeah.
So Daddy Dom is essentially the person in the relationship that takes the nurturing and guiding role through the little girl, who takes the submissive and sort of taking up and losing your control and giving it to the Dom. You're expecting that, your Dom is going to be there for you in a nurturing or even a strict way. There's many types of daddy doming, and even being a little girl. I think that the standard relationship that people think of is a very strict daddy dom, who's it's spanking, it's paddling every day, you're in trouble every day. It's very aggressive. And then the little girl is expected to just be submissive and very responsive to this. But that's not necessarily the case all the time.
Yeah.
Because, there's bratty submissives who will, kind of fight you for that control. Even if what they really want to do is give it up, you're not going to get it easily. And then, of course, you have doms who are maybe not strict and are a lot more soft and a lot more nurturing in their approach. And of course, and then you have all the gender variants. There's not just daddies, there's mommies, there's non-binary people that participate. And it's the same for the little role. And it's people expect them to be older as the dom or be bigger as the dom. And
yeah,
once again, not always the case. I know plenty of people who, don't look like that standard kind of typical, stereotypical relationship. It's just, that's not the case. There's so many variants and so many dynamics.
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know if DDLG has like penetrated different aspects of society, like maybe without people even realizing it. Because obviously like one of the most popular podcasts at the moment is called like Call Her Daddy. It's super fashionable for like girls to use the word daddy on TikTok and things like that. But I wouldn't say they're into DDLG just because they're using it, but they are using it in that BDSM sense. I don't think they're actually talking about their dads. And I think that's like the bit I think that it's the dad part that people struggle with in that aspect, that they don't understand that it's a role, that it's like a power transfer. Mm-hmm. It's like authority, not actually a dad or fantasizing about a dad. And yeah, I think the little girl bit is probably the bit that stirs up the most controversy, just because it's just the phrase, I think. But I don't think there's a better phrase. But I don't know. I think there's also this weird thing where people are like maybe afraid to like it, like because a lot of things that are wrong are also hot, like because it's taboo, that kind of makes it more hot. And I know like in porn, obviously, it's completely fine to dress someone up in a schoolgirl's uniform and film in a school, in a classroom. But if you use the word little girl, suddenly it changes. And it's not really allowed. So the idea that language changes things so much fascinates me. And I don't understand.
There's a lot of semantics within it. Mm. Because, you look at, DDLG is just one of many subsets. There's so many things that you could do. Mommy daughter, mommy boy. It's really just a mix and match. And the same is to be said for how people express that. Because, a lot of people get started into it perhaps maybe non-sexually. A lot of people maybe get introduced through a partner or form and find out that way.
Is non-sexual common?
So that kind of comes to the age regression versus age play thing. Because I know some people kind of do it without a sexual component, and I think that's considered age regression, and it's more of like a therapy thing. And then, of course, you have age play, which is the actual, like, okay, I'm getting off on this. This is like, a dynamic. This is a BDSM dynamic.
Because that's really interesting. And like, now I guess just to help people understand like actual DDLG relationships, like it is an ongoing relationship. It's not just something that you play in that moment. It's like is it different from other types of role play in that, like, it's something you do full time rather than say just, okay, tonight I'm a teacher or something, I don't know.
I'm sure that there's some people that take it on a night by night basis. And of course that's fine. Some people aren't just, the lifestyle aspect can be draining. It's a lot to keep up with.
Yeah.
So, totally understandable. I think the more you are into it, the more likely that it is a lifestyle thing. You look at things like collaring. That definitely ties into lifestyle because, that's something that you are now bringing from your private life into public. You can go out with like, the discreet ones or like a collar at home to show ownership. And, I have submitted control to my dom. That certainly falls under lifestyle things, but I think it's perfectly fine to try it out maybe once a night and, get into it. And if you don't like it, then, that's totally fine.
The thing that's interesting as well is like when people think daddy dom, you immediately think like old man, right? Like you think dad age, but it doesn't have to be, right? It could be someone of any age.
Right.
Because I had personal experience with that. Like, I think before I even knew about DDLG, I remember I was filming a porn video and it was a threesome with one of my friends, a female friend. And the girl just suddenly started calling me daddy. And it threw me so much, like it confused me so much, because I was like, okay, I'm like 5 years older than you. Like, and I didn't know what to do. I just like kind of ignored it. But after, when I was like kind of at home and it got in my head a little bit, I was like, oh, that's kind of hot, but I wasn't sure why, you know. It was really interesting. I think it's just like the power thing, or it's this, it is very submissive, someone calling you that. You definitely feel it when someone does call you it, even when it's a surprise. Like, complete surprise was a bit weird, I must admit. But yeah, that was my first experience with it. And I didn't feel that I was a daddy. I didn't feel like it was a role play I'd be able to do. At least not at that time. So I did feel that because I was younger that it wasn't possible. But I don't know, is it more difficult with younger daddies, or it doesn't really make a difference?
I personally don't think it makes a difference. I've never had like an experience where I've been like, you're too young, or you're too old, or you know, too short, too whatever. It's just, it's more of a personality thing, I suppose. Like with all things, essentially.
Yeah.
You know, can you provide? Can you provide? Essentially, is what it comes down to, because, you know, as like, you know, a dominant figure, you are the one in control. And that comes with an immense amount of responsibility, especially over an entirely, you know, another person in a sexual situation. But I do think people underestimate how much power littles have as well. Whether it be, you know, bratty littles, or, you know, littles who bat their eyes and get their way. There's still power there. There's still power on their end. They are still somewhat in control. They're still, you know, it's their show almost, I guess, if that makes sense. They are the prize.
I have a friend that she's a feminist, and her view of feminism is that girls use sex to gain power, you know, because they ultimately are the gatekeepers. So she would argue that, you know, that is the power, you know, even if you're submitting, you know, you're choosing to submit, you're not.
Right.
So yeah, it's definitely, and it's just people don't think of it like that. They just think, oh, you're submissive, so the guy gets to do whatever he wants. And it's not quite like that at all. And how does it, to me, it sounds like it doesn't really vary much from any other BDSM power exchange, like master slave or anything like that. It seems like just a different skin for it in a way.
I think that's what surprises most people, honestly, who get into it, is it's just BDSM at the end of the day. I mean, you can call it different things, but at the very end of the day, I mean, it's just another power dynamic within that branch. The only thing different from it, you know, essentially, is how people perceive it. It's a lot easier to, you know, post master slave porn on the internet than it is DDLG, because there's less, you know, negative connotation surrounding it, even though one really essentially is more violent than the other. Which is interesting.
Yeah, I didn't think of it like that, because in like a master slave relationship, there would be, you know, there's often a lot of like painful punishments and other kinks involved that, you know, can even draw blood, or, you know, with real injuries, real danger.
Right.
And yeah, even the connotations, you'd think slavery is a more controversial role play than like a nurturing, like dad-daughter kind of role play. Although it's not daughter, it's like, it's so hard to even have the conversation without like falling into the same traps that other people do.
Right.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And like also the aesthetic is, like I say, it just seems like a different skin for role play. Like I've always found that like dressing up in leathers and latex and things like that, it's been around for so long that it kind of looks a bit cheesy, you know, a bit cliche. And I'd feel quite silly wearing those clothes, especially as a guy. Maybe I think girls have a bit more choice with BDSM clothes. Whereas with like DDLG, you can just like use normal clothes that you get on the high street, and it feels more real as well. You know, if you're looking for like authenticity, maybe is that part of the appeal, that you can kind of fall into like the role play more easily?
I think it is. Now, I don't want to put down other BDSM types, but I do think it's like a little bit more intimate than others. Because DDLG doesn't really require a location, like a specific location. I mean, when you think about master slave, what do you think about? Like the warehouses from like kink.com's videos or something?
I think, oh God, this is a lot of work. I have to like learn carpentry, start building my own furniture, buying custom latex outfits. I think nipple clamps, needles.
Right.
I think like a horror movie, basically.
But for DDLG, it doesn't really require any objects. You don't really need anything besides your words and how you treat the other person. I mean, as long as you are with that person, you can engage in that dynamic. That's it. I mean, it doesn't require gear. Obviously, a lot of people like gear because it's fun and it's fun to play with. But it's not needed. And I think that really needs to be said, especially for people who are looking to get into it as beginners, because it can be very like, what's the word I'm looking for? Not scary, but
yeah, I guess intimidating. Like
intimidating, yes.
Yeah, like for me, I'm around so many like different types of sexual people that often do it for work. So it's always been easy for me to try new things. But yeah, if I was like interested in BDSM and I wanted to go to a fetish party, for example, like that would be an incredibly intimidating thing. Like to pick an outfit and not to feel comfortable, to go there around strangers, especially when I feel like BDSM is a bit like Dungeons and Dragons, you know. There's like a lot of lore, there's a lot of rules, there's a lot of etiquette, and just learning it all and being comfortable with it, it's not an easy thing to do. You know, and there's so much jargon, you know. I think there is with DDLG as well. Like I was surprised how much when I was looking through, but it does seem more accessible. And yeah, like most girls have something cute in their wardrobe that they can put on, and you know, most guys can just look more, you know, authoritative just by wearing a suit or a shirt and a tie or something, you know. So I get that it's easy to just change the aesthetic and be spontaneous. And do you think it's only controversial just because of this like little girl aspect, basically, just like the semantics of it?
I think so. I think because, you know, it is a taboo topic, I think that definitely, you know, casts a negative light on it in certain aspects. And then, of course, you have the people who come into it who maybe aren't into DDLG or who don't practice safe BDSM. People who are essentially like, you know, predators who will kind
Is that common?
Attempt to fit the role and take advantage of people. Do I think that's common? No. Do I think it happens in almost every BDSM sort of subset? Absolutely. Anytime you have authority, you will have someone that will take advantage of it.
I guess like they would, you know, they could just do that on Tinder and they don't need BDSM to do that.
You would hope.
You know,
you would hope.
It's like there's always predators everywhere. I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know how many, if people are more attracted to it because they're predators to something like that, or if it's just they're predators, so they're going to do that regardless of what relationship they have. Yeah. I think it's worth talking about like the aesthetics. There is this fashion of like people importing Japanese fashions, like Lolita fashions and princess core and so many different varieties of like soft aesthetics. Personally, I think they're really, really cool and playful. But we are talking about adults trying to look childlike, right? Like we are, like there's no denying that, I don't think. Like, yes, they are adults, but they're using like makeup to de-age themselves, which I mean, that's what makeup does anyway, but still. Like like using like, plushes and clothes and like children's clothes. And is that okay, do you think? Like, is there a bad side to that?
Do I think that it could possibly attract people who want to take advantage of that? For sure. I think that's true with a lot of things. I mean, you look at TikTok, for example. TikTok is huge, especially with children. And because it's popular, there's so many people on there. I mean, one person is bound to, just be a bad person because they are a bad person. Do I think that makes TikTok bad? Mm-mm. And I would say the same for DDLG.
Do you think that by using like a childlike aesthetic that we're encouraging men to, say, be attracted to children, for example?
I think most adult men are cognizant enough to realize that the person that they're looking at is an adult at the end of the day, and that it's just playing. It's just role playing.
Yeah. Because I think that's like one of the big criticisms, isn't it? That like some people don't seem to understand that, because some people would say that the people that enjoy it are people that are attracted to children, and you're basically creating, content for pedophiles. And it's so horrible to say, but that's one of the criticisms. And yeah, how would you feel about that?
Like I said before, it's definitely like understandable. I don't ever like make people feel bad about that because it's understandable at the end of the day. If I were a newcomer looking in, and I have been, I get it. It's, but at the end of the day, it's like adults are adults, right? If I want to go out wearing a pink frilly dress, I am going to do it. I'm going to do it. It's not hurting anyone.
Yeah.
If looking at me offends you because I'm in like a childish outfit, then turn around. I'm never going to go into a public situation where I know there's going to be children in kink gear, though. I think that is something that most people need to respect. Please don't do that. Please don't do that.
Yeah. No, and yeah, I think that's like the interesting thing as well, is because it's just clothes, isn't it? And like the reason we say they're children's clothes is because someone just decided that this cut, this style, this color is for children.
Exactly.
And it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be. Like,
right.
It could be that in 10 years, because some people dress children as adults because it's cute, right? Like I remember when I look at my childhood photos, it's like mostly like wearing quite smart clothes, like, and it all looks, oh, he's like a little adult, like at a wedding in a little mini suit or something. But for some reason, it's like when it's adults dressing with more childlike things, it's somehow people think they're trying to be children. It makes no sense.
See, now that's like, I feel like, bringing up like, okay, well, we dress kids like adults sometimes. Are we supposed to treat them like adults? Again, you can look at a child and be like, this is a child.
Yeah.
That should be it. If you have any other thoughts outside of that, that is on you. And it's like, pink is for girls and blue is for boys. That's what we're taught as kids. Why is that? Is that something that we respect as adults? Plenty of men wear pink. Plenty of women wear blue. I think at the end of the day, like with many things, it just comes down to the connotations with how people perceive things. Because if I feel comfortable wearing like skirts and knee highs, then that's how I feel comfortable. And I don't think anything should be wrong with that. If someone else feels they should be modest and cover up, entirely good for them. I'm all for being comfortable. I mean, it doesn't hurt anyone to dress how you want.
Yeah, and yeah, it really is. Like, I know so many times we talk about something being a social construct, but fashion really is a social construct. Like, men don't wear tights anymore, but we used to. And now tights are for women and trousers are for men. But yeah, if a man wants to wear tights, why not? So yeah, if a girl wants to, wear baby pink clothes, and why not? So, but I think it's worth addressing because the aesthetic really gets people. It really confuses people. My personal belief is that it's very playful And I do think it's deliberately using childhood to turn someone on. Now, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because I think, you know, the reason why a schoolgirl uniform is hot is because when you're an adolescent boy, you know, your first fantasies are with, you know, your classmates, you know, and at least where I went to school, we had a uniform. So that was like, that's why it's hot for me. But it doesn't mean I want children. It's just like tapping into this like emotional, carefree, adolescent horniness, I guess.
Right.
And I see like these Japanese Lolita fashions, they do that and then like take it so far in such cool and creative ways. And it's fun. I'm sure. I think it's so fun. But do you ever have any problems with people when if you're wearing, say, like, because do you wear like DDLG aesthetic clothes in public?
So, I've worn like skirts and like knee highs and like playful looking clothes in public before, and I've never received a complaint. In fact, it's been the opposite. I remember 2 separate occasions where like a woman came up to me and she was like, "Your outfit is so cool." And I was cool. Like, "Thanks," you know, like I appreciate it. And like I said, it really just comes back to, okay, what are you comfortable with and does it make you happy? And if it's not hurting anyone, I really don't care, to be frank with you. I just don't care. If you're an adult, you're good. You got it.
Yeah, and it's so funny because the people who complain most about this are often the more religious right people, who are also the ones always complaining about the lack of freedom of speech and freedom of expression and like, hey, we should be able to do what we want, you know? And it's like, okay, so let me just wear what I want. So,
you would think, you truly would think.
Yeah, I love all those little hypocrisies. So like one of the things in, so let's just get into like the specifics of DDLG a little bit. So when we're talking about the daddy dom, could you explain a little bit more about his role and like how that actually works? 'Cause I think we talked quite vaguely, but on a more practical level.
So the dom essentially is, you know, the person you would say is taking care of the little. Doms might implement roles where it's like, hey, if you eat 3 meals today, you'll get a sticker on your chart or something like that. Or, you know, essentially like nurturing and caring activities like coloring, watching cartoons, things like that. And those are things that can be triggers for littles to kind of relax and get into the mindset and get comfortable with the scene and setting. Since, you know, it's a BDSM scene. It's role-playing. Whether that be, some people use pacifiers, sippy cups, plushies, special bedding. Sometimes you can see people who are really into it will build like entire rooms with like adult-sized cribs and things like that, which I think is pretty cool. I don't know if I would ever personally do it, but I appreciate the commitment. I think it's interesting. So doms are kind of, I mean, you know, it's in the name. They're parents. You act as a parental role. You want to make sure that your little is doing good. And depending on the type of dynamic you have, if they're not doing good, that's where you might implement punishments like spanking, timeouts, things like that. And then, of course, you know, rewards being pleasure, you know, orgasms, gifts, things like that.
And this is like as part of play. So like, is playtime kind of, just trying to like visualize it. So when we say play, it's not like, it could be like a significant amount of time, like say a whole evening or a whole day. It's not like when people have sex where it tends to be like, you know, maybe 30 minutes for a lot of people.
I would definitely say usually sessions are longer than 30 minutes. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, it is. So the role play is like, it's quite all encompassing. It's, you're like living a day just in a different kind of way to your normal life.
My preferred way is usually in the evenings, kind of when I'm nice and sleepy, because I feel like it's a little bit easier to kind of immerse yourself into the setting. I like having cartoons on. I like having my plushies around me. You know, I like being in between my partner's lap. You know, they'll tell me cute things, like, you know, we used phrases of speech like, you know, hey, good girl, things like that, like positive reinforcement. I myself am not very fond of like super strict doms. That's just me. Of course, everyone is different. I really want to make sure I reiterate that. It's very personal to everyone. It's not ever going to fit just like you don't have to be like the typical, what you see on the internet. That's personally what I like, though, is kind of the nurturing and guidance and, you know, receiving pleasure from being good.
Yet the way you make it sound is like, say, if I'm with my partner and I have like a lazy Sunday where we just sit and watch movies and cuddle and sometimes have sex or whatever, and it's like a whole day thing. Like, it sounds very just caring and sensual and cuddly, really.
It's really not as like unnatural as people think. I feel like it's like a lot of people think it's like out in this whole other world, and it's like if you really look down to it, like, I promise you, it's not that scary. Now, obviously, I know not everyone is going to be into the kink, nor do I think they should be if they're not comfortable with it. But, you know, it's not as odd as it seems on base level.
No, it's really not. Like, I feel like I'm fishing for something that's not there, you know? Like, it does just sound like a slightly more extreme version of cuddling, you know? Like, it's that kind of vibe. And yeah, on the BDSM side, like a more mild version of BDSM, if anything. At least that's my impression. And then you said that you talked about getting into like the headspace of it. So they call that little space, is my understanding. And what does that actually mean? And what happens in your head for that?
I don't think it's necessarily a transformation, but like I said, again, I think it varies for people. Some people describe it more as like a mood. Some people describe it like a mindset. Some people, I've seen people compare it to being like in a hypnotic state before, or maybe even kind of like, not like a separate personality, but a character, if you will. Getting into character, I feel like that's a pretty good way of explaining it in terms of scene. It's getting into character. Which is, again, you know, what things like triggers are for, like, you know, having the environment, like plushies, having the cartoons, coloring, things like that, to get into it. So personally for me, I lean towards more of calling it a mindset or a mood. I don't feel like I'm an entirely different person. I don't feel separate from myself. I'm just in the scene, enjoying myself. And some people may express that by using childish speak, playing with toys, coloring, how they dress. They might have rattle toys. I mean, all kinds of things.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that was the hard thing to understand, because I've heard, obviously in BDSM, when people talk about being in subspace, and I've had that with previous partners where, I don't know, it's looked like some kind of extreme adrenaline rush, you know, where they're like not quite their self anymore. And I wasn't sure if something similar happened with DDLG, where like some wave of emotion takes over somehow, like where it is kind of like a drug.
I definitely feel that way during maybe more aggressive BDSM practices. But with DDLG, for me personally, it's not usually like that, unless, you know, of course, like I'm in a mood where it's like, okay, well, I'm going to be a brat, that way I get punished. Then that it kind of kicks it up a notch. But like on a daily basis, a little bit more laid back, I think, than like the average BDSM encounter.
Okay, and so little space is, like you say, just mostly getting into character. And is like daddy space a thing, or is that
I would say so. Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. I think there's maybe less emphasis on it for some reason. Since it's when you take the role of a little, you kind of have to play it up just a little bit. But it's like you said with like dressing up. Most girls have something cute in their closet, and most men can find something to get that little bit of oomph or authority. I think you can do that very similarly with your mindset. I don't know if it's as in depth as little spaces necessarily, since you kind of have to hold on to control, since you are the one in control of the scene. And being little is more, giving up that control and receiving.
Yeah, and I think if you're not a naturally dominant person, you can't act it,
Right.
So it's more of a, like I say, the emphasis is more on the little in this case. So yeah, let's talk about DDLG in porn, because that's like my sweet spot and like what you're doing as well. Like, why did you decide to do like a more of a DDLG content? Just because it's like what you're into, or?
I enjoy it. Number one, I think it's fun. I like it. It's nice. Two, I'm not really built to be like a MILF or anything. I'm very much the opposite. I'm very petite. I have a very round face. It's just kind of the niche that I felt I fit in the best, and the one I felt most comfortable in. And it feels nice. It feels nice to get messages. Like, most of the porn that I usually watch is very oriented on being hot, being sexy, but you're really cute. And I like that aspect. I like having both aspects, that kind of duality. And I like bringing that in my content. I think that's fun.
Yeah, and what kind of content do you make?
My favorite thing to make is toy play, and I like dressing up. Whether it be schoolgirl, bunny costumes, I have dog ears somewhere, kitty ears, things like that. Just dressing up and kind of, using toys is my favorite thing to do, because it just feels fun.
Yeah. So all the stuff you do is just alone, like not with guys or girls. It's okay. And yeah, and what are the guys like? Is it like because do you offer is it like a role play service, like where it's two ways, or do you just make content for everybody and put it out there?
A lot of my feed is usually it leans towards the submissive side for most things. I don't really feel like I put out a lot of dominant pixie feed posts, just because, like I said, I kind of thrive in the role that I'm in. I like where I'm at. I don't really like being on top or being dominant or anything like that. So feed posts definitely lean towards the submissive kind of, aesthetic, childish side. Now, customs and sexting, I will let the client kind of tell me what they prefer. Maybe they're more of a strict dom, maybe they're more of a soft dom, maybe they're somewhere kind of in between. And I learn their preferences and kind of talk to them and figure out how they usually operate. And then we can kind of, build the setting and go from there, which can be a little bit more difficult online, because you like the physicality and intimacy of being in person and, and touching and things. So I try extra hard, especially on sexting, to immerse both myself and the client.
And what kind of things do they ask for?
The schoolgirl outfit is a big hit. People love school outfits. Pigtails, plushies nearby, things like that. Can you talk in a childish voice? Can you call me daddy? Can you, hold a plushie, while the toy's in you, XYZ, all kinds of stuff.
And what are the guys like? Is there anything they have in common?
would say they're usually older. Obviously not always the case. I've had 20, 19-year-olds come into my DMs with the same things.
When you say older, you mean like my age or even older? Or
like older than 25, I would say.
Okay.
A lot of my clients are older than 25.
So not so old. Like
No. I definitely have like a couple of older gentlemen who are in their 60s to 70s as fans, and they're very sweet. I've never really had any issues with anyone who's ever like come to me with the DDLG kink in mind. They're usually very nice. They're usually very kind. I don't think I've ever had any problems with them.
Yeah, it just sounds like quite a sweet thing, to be honest.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like, it doesn't even sound so sexual. It sounds like more, like you say, like a virtual hug, virtual cuddles, that kind of thing. Just sweetness.
Yeah. I kind of pride my channel on that, I guess, a little bit. Like, I just like making people smile, which I think kind of sounds silly to most, like, people who don't do porn. When I tell them that, they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, you're naked on the internet. And I'm like, yeah, but I want to do it in, like, a cool way. Like, I want to make people smile. Like, I don't want people to think of me as, like, just like a Sports Illustrated poster. Like, you can talk to me like I'm a person.
How did, like, friends and family, like, react when you decided to do this?
So I have the really great advantage of not having any family. So I don't really care. Which is nice because, like, I'll get some people, like, in my Reddit comments usually who are like, fatherless behavior. And I'm like, you're exactly right. But I don't care. Because it's just whatever, you know? Like, I'm an adult. I'm doing my thing. My friends are all very supportive. My partner does sex work as well. So I've never really had an issue with it. I think I've had maybe one person that I knew in high school, like, message me and be like, hey. And I was like, ooh, uh-oh. They're like, are you on Reddit? I'm like, yeah. They're like, yeah, I accidentally found you. I'm like, I don't really know about the accidentally part, but, like, you know.
Yeah.
Thanks, I guess.
Yeah, it's always like the old school friends that don't have the best reactions. Like, they're kind of fake friends. The people you know, but not really friends.
Yeah.
So how did you get into this? Was it through Reddit, or like what triggered
It was through
an interest?
Reddit. So originally I started out, I had, turned 18. I was starting to kind of get out there and talk to people, and like meet with people on Tinder and kind of figure out where I was. And I hooked up with a guy, and he moved states immediately after and ghosted me. And that was like one of my first hookups ever. So I was...
What did you do to him?
I didn't do anything. That was the worst part. Okay, so I don't know if I should, like, say this, but, like, I took his virginity.
Wow.
So, like, just like, a thank you card or something would have been nice before, like, dipping to, like, the other side of the country and then being like, also, I'm never talking to you again. So, admittedly, I was very crushed after that. I didn't really have, like, a lot of self-esteem. It just, it was hard because it was like, the first time I went out and it was like, I kind of got taken advantage of a little bit. It felt like. So I opened up Reddit one day and I was like, you know what? I'm going to post a nude picture on here. I'm going to see how it goes. Because, maybe these people will tell me something I don't know. And I mean, lo and behold, people did tell me. I had a bunch of people all of a sudden who were following me and being like, post more, make an OnlyFans, post more. And it
feels good, doesn't it, for your confidence?
Okay, sure.
Yeah, I've had so many people have that same journey where they were maybe not so confident in their looks, and kind of surprised that people wanted to see them, especially on Reddit.
Yes.
And yeah, they started like working on themselves, working on photography skills. And yeah, the difference it made to their personal confidence is incredible. Like, just
it's
different
so
person.
Nice. It's really nice because I feel kind of selfish telling other people this, but it's like when you have like a large community that, you know, backs you up and I mean, essentially pays you to be naked, like it's kind of hard not to take some pride in that and be like, wow, I am worth something, you know, which I feel sounds kind of sad when I say it out loud, but
I know what you mean though. It's like,
like going from being like an incredibly like insecure, you know, person to like, you know, I'm worth something. I think that's just nice.
Yeah, I think we all need that, don't we? And I think especially, you know, there's so many men out there as well that just, they feel exactly how you did. And they don't know how to get that. Like you say, you put it as like, I'm worth something, but I think you mean that like just as a person, not like financially worth something.
Right.
Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, we all need that. So it's so needed. I wish there was an easier way of getting it, but yeah, for me, I did something similar where I just started posting pictures, but on Instagram, and I'd never done it before. And I was so nervous. And then I kind of got addicted to the likes. It's like,
it's a very slippery slope.
Yeah, I'm not like a model or anything, but it's like just learning how to take an acceptable photograph of myself and then get compliments. It's like, yeah, okay, I like that.
I think even like previously to me being 18 too, like growing up, I was not like a very attractive person. Which, you know, in middle school and high school, like most people generally kind of aren't. Like you're growing. It you know, puberty. It makes sense. But I was a very quiet kid. I didn't really talk to people. I didn't really have friends. I ate in the hallways during lunch.
What?
Yeah,
what
so I didn't have to go to the cafeteria because there were so many people.
So you would just sit on the floor and...
I would. I would just read my book. So going from that to being like... I saw this one website earlier this week referred to me as a nude influencer. And I was like, whoa, that's kind of wow.
It's cool. It's always like that, though, isn't it? It's always the quiet ones that end up like a lot of celebrities, a lot of pop stars. They're often like quite introverted, and they kind of need that attention to keep their esteem high. And so, like with doing DDLG porn, have you found like any restrictions or anything difficult with it?
Posting wise, absolutely. Because, you know, again, with the connotations of it being, you know, taboo and risky, finding sites that allow you to post content related to that is very difficult. And if you can post, sometimes you have to be very careful about, you know, how you present your video and what's in it.
Could you give me some examples? Like, where are you not allowed, for example?
So for me personally, like I kind of draw the line at bringing it out into the public. I won't do like DDLG play out in the open, like, you know, in malls, or like, you know, I won't go to like a park or anything like that. Because for me, it's very intimate. You know, I like feeling safe, and I feel safe at home. So that makes some people kind of upset for their customs because they're like, well, can you go to like a park or like this, that? And I'm like, no, like, I'm very sorry, but it's not for me because number one, it's risky to post that. And two, I just personally don't feel comfortable with it. And, you know, even then there are certain people who maybe like the younger aspect or like age range of playing, like the adult baby kind of aspect. And I don't cater to that. I don't do like diapers or anything like that, or like changing. Like that's just personally for me. Like where I draw the line. Onesies, perfectly fine. Skirts, like pacifiers, perfectly fine for content. I don't have any issue with that. But there are certainly some things that I feel kind of about.
Yeah, and you said that platforms restrict you as well. So what problems have you had with platforms?
So OnlyFans in particular has become a little bit different about it, because when I first started posting on OnlyFans, it was like, okay, DDLG, daddy, and like, and the feed posts and comments and stuff, because, that's my niche. That's kind of just what I lean towards. And now if you look at it, it's like they don't really like those words anymore. They get kind of picky about them. And even on Reddit, I've started to see certain subreddits get banned. Or, they'll lock it down, or you'll have to verify to post or something. Because they've had issues with people like reporting, things like that. So even if you look at like TikTok is a very risky place to post things like that, because there's so many people, and there's also children on the platform. So it's kind of like, for me personally, I prefer to stick towards posting that content on strictly 18 plus forums, because then no one can come up to me and be like, you're showing this, or like, this could potentially reach children. And it's like...
So do you only use Reddit?
For promoting purposes, mostly. I used to have a Twitter, but people were on there were very mean to me. And I just wasn't having it. So I stick with Reddit and OnlyFans.
Okay. And you don't use any of the main porn sites like Pornhub and stuff like that?
I used to use Pornhub, but after they took away like amateur porn and stuff, it just made me kind of sad. Like seeing so much content deleted, and I really feel for those creators that like put out their content and had it deleted.
When that happened, though, I noticed that my sales went up. There must have been so much piracy on Pornhub that...
Oh my gosh.
I was like, oh, my sales just jumped by like 20% or something. I was like, huh. So they were stealing a lot. But yeah.
Some people.
But there is, I wanted to talk about this. We talked about it off camera about how it's actually Visa and MasterCard who are censoring
the
porn,
banks,
and not porn sites. It's not really Twitter and Reddit that are doing the censorship. And it seems strange to me that they've picked out DDLG specifically. And whereas it's okay to make teen porn, it's okay to dress as schoolgirls, so it's okay to do DDLG, you just can't call it DDLG.
Yeah. Even looking at apps that aren't meant for sex work, like Pinterest, I've noticed that word is banned. If you try to search it in the search bar, nothing.
And Pinterest is like a fashion thing, so like you should be looking for...
I remember looking for pins based on like fashion or like rooms or like certain people's setups or just cute posts. I never saw anything nude or inappropriate, because once again, it's Pinterest. It's an app for everyone. It's not porn based. But that word is just not there. You cannot search it.
Yeah, the only word I knew that was banned on porn sites before was the word Lolita, for obvious reasons. But a lot of European porn stars had the name Lolita, so sorry for them. But DDLG seems to be the first word to have joined that, and there seems to be this general trend of avoiding young-sounding words. Like I noticed in the last 6 months, the word young has been deleted. But young can just mean like younger. Like it's like if I have a video with like a MILF and a teen, And so I will use the word younger or young in the description,
Yeah.
but they say no, like it's just banned.
They really just get caught up in the semantics of it is really all I can gather from everything. Is just everyone gets caught up in the semantics of things.
Yeah, the language seems to be more important than anything. So yeah, I'm, because I said to you, I'm doing like my own like DDLG series just to see what happens with it, just to see what problems I have, because it's very strange that they're attacking this specifically. And I don't know if you tried Instagram, but DDLG on Instagram, you don't last very long. Like, Did you try it?
No, that's one of those sites where it's like, I've just heard from so many other content creators, like, and my account got banned within like a week, or like, I can't post anything on there.
If you follow the rules, you shouldn't get deleted. But DDLG, it doesn't last long. But if you're doing fashion and you don't call it DDLG, it's like one of the hottest things. And there's so many like Lolita style influencers on there.
Right.
So I don't understand why it's just these words are so toxic. You mentioned age play a moment ago, and different ages that littles can be. And I think this is probably the most controversial part of DDLG. And so when you're role playing, is it okay to ask like what age you role play as?
Yeah, of course.
And could you explain like the ages that people do?
So for me personally, I don't really know if I can like give it like a set age, because it's kind of difficult. I would say for me, it's around like 6 to 8. Like I really, I just like being cute, I guess. But yeah, there's definitely people who fall more under the, like adult baby spectrum, where it's, they're playing very young, like they're playing as infants or toddlers. And that's more so where you'll find like the diaper stuff being a thing. And like the cribs and things like that. And the connotation around that is very difficult.
And yeah, like when the adult baby stuff, I remember seeing it like on chat shows, and it was like hyped up in the 90s. And how do they play? Is it a sexual thing, or is it just they want to be treated like a baby? I don't know.
I think it really, honestly, at the end of the day, just depends on the person, because so many people have different reasons for, getting into what they're getting into. Which is, again, why I've brought up so many times today, like there is no one perfect dynamic. There is no one typical play. It really is just personal to you. And if you have a partner involved, their preferences as well. So now, do I think some people do it non-sexually? Absolutely. No childhood, bad childhood, trauma. I mean, there's plenty of reasons. Now, I'm not a therapist, nor am I a doctor, so I'm not going to say whether that's good or bad, because I don't know.
Yeah, I know it is, like, age regression is used in therapy, but I don't know if it's good or bad, or who.
Right.
Who
so
says
I
it's
can't
good or
say
bad.
like one way or the other, like, if it helps or if it doesn't help. At the end of the day, adult doing their own thing, not hurting anyone. Not really my business. And then, of course, you have older littles who are called middles, who are a bit more like preteens, I suppose you could put it. Like, 10 to 12, that kind of age range. I've noticed that a lot of middles tend to like video games. They like playing video games. They're a little bit more independent than the younger ones that play. There's generally less rules for them than there would be with younger counterparts in their DOMs. Generally just a little bit more established independence and kind of letting them do their own thing. And of course, as you get younger, the act of caregiving becomes more intensive.
Okay. So it's like, and this is the bit that people find really uncomfortable, is like, if you say like, oh, I'm playing as a 6-year-old, does that mean you're role playing kind of abusive scenarios? Okay,
See,
as role play. I don't mean that as like it's
no,
abuse.
I gotcha.
But,
right. People say that a lot. And then it's like there's also pet play, which is similar in essence to age play, where it's like getting into the headspace of being a pet.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed DDLG and pet play go together quite often.
They're very similar, and I think they both kind of have that nurturing role. I think pet play is a little bit not strict, but like a little bit more confining. Since obviously there's a different kind of dynamic between a pet and an owner than, you know, a parental role and a small one. But you'll look at pet play and people won't ask that question. Like, well, do you like animals that way?
Yeah.
Obviously not. You're having sex with a human.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's the same with DDLG. You know, you're an adult and you're consenting, then you're smart enough to recognize that the person in front of you, you know, is also an adult.
Yeah. But like some scenarios would be like playing where, okay, I'm playing as, say, a 6-year-old and the other person's playing as an adult. So when you do have a sexual interaction, you are kind of role-playing this one person taking advantage of the other, right? Or does it not work like that? I don't know.
See, I think that comes with the idea that the Dom is the person who gets the benefit out of the situation.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily true. There is no one-way system of power.
I don't
has
mean
to be pleasure on both sides.
Yeah, and I don't mean it as a bad thing, because obviously in any BDSM dynamic, like forced sex and forced sex fantasies are a thing.
Right.
So, but I think like it's just specifically with the age play plus that, I think that's where people have an issue. It's like, what does this mean? What does it mean about me? What does it mean about him or her? And yeah, I think you explain it very well that, you know, it is an adult. It is consensual. It's very different to actual abuse or whatever.
Right.
But I do think people would have questions about that. Like, could it lead to abuse? Is it someone that's maybe had abuse and they're kind of, I don't know, reliving it somehow? Not that that's a bad thing. But it's very complicated. It's hard to even talk about because it makes me uncomfortable to talk about it, you know? But I think it's worth explaining for people.
I think, like, you know, like I said previously, everyone kind of has their own reasons for getting into it. Me personally, do I have trauma associated with those things? Yeah. Do I think that participating in the things that I participate aggravates that? I've never noticed it affecting my mental health in any sort of negative way. I know what I'm getting into. You know, I have safe words. Safe words are essential. Safety within any aspect of BDSM play has to be the number one priority. And I think a lot of people forget that, you know, if you agree to it, that you have to go through with it. You are welcome to stop at any time you feel uncomfortable. That's how any sexual encounter should be. Yeah. And I think a lot of people forget that that's like an option. That the person who's, you know, in the little role is there because they have to be there. But that's not the case. They're there because, you know, they want to be there as much as the other person does. Because they gain something, whether it be pleasure, whether it be safety, whether it be a multitude of things, whether the Dom gains, you know, a sense of control and pleasure, whether they just feel completed because they know that their little is feeling pleasurable. I mean, there's so many aspects that can go into it that it's kind of hard to nail it down to one because it is so personal and because it is so intimate. And because it's so intimate, I think a lot of people have a hard time understanding and grasping onto it. So it makes them uncomfortable because they don't understand, you know, which is fine. I just more so have issue with people reacting to it in such a negative and aggressive way. Accusing people of being pedophiles, or, XYZ, or like, you're going to teach people to like this. But, if you are consuming porn, then I feel like it is your responsibility as the consumer to sort of, I know what's reality and what is not.
Yeah.
It's film at the end of the day. I mean, really, like, it's just acting. Now, does acting mean that it's fake and hollow? No. You look at plenty of actors who put real emotion and previous experience into their performances. I don't think it's really any different.
No, you said it very well. And I don't know why when it comes to sex, people can't understand that, people know the difference between fantasy and reality. Like we said earlier, people play such violent video games and watch all manner of violent entertainment, including like real sports where people actively harm each other, and that's fine. But, consenting sex is somehow dangerous.
Yeah. And it's like, you look at like video games have been a big topic within, recent years because of increased violence and whatnot. And like, oh, is this the cause? And it's like, people have been consuming media that is violent or somehow, not the norm for years. I mean, you look at Roman gladiator fights. Yeah. Literal death. It's entertainment and it's shock value, and a lot of people enjoy that. I think that's just kind of human nature. It's kind of like looking at a car crash and you can't look away. It's...
I would disagree with that. I'd say it's the art. I wouldn't like to do boxing, but I love boxing and I love watching a big fight. And it's something different. It's like you're kind of worshipping this perfect specimen that's incredible at what they do. It's like the best fighter in the world. It's something to be admired. It's like, it's brutal. And the brutality is off-putting, I think. But you can enjoy it without wanting to go home and go, okay, I'm going to fight everyone
like I'm a
now.
murderer now. I think that's just like, like video games. People are like, well, if you're killing kids in games, does that mean you're going to want to kill kids in real life? And again, it comes back to, okay, well, are you able to establish reality from fiction? And if you are unable to do that, then perhaps you should not be seeking fiction out.
Yeah. Well, they say, well, maybe some people can't, or it's like, but those people are so rare, I think. And, people like that clearly would have some, major issues just fitting in society in general. And we can't, we can't make everything, cotton wool, wrap everything in cotton wool for the outliers that might be a bit crazy. But I don't know. All the studies I've seen have shown that like violent video games, for example, lower people's violent propensity. Yeah. So I'm sure it's the same with porn. Can we talk about variations of DDLG? Because that's interesting. It's like it doesn't have to be like daddy, dom, little girl. Yes. It can be like...
So I think a lot of people kind of like, since it's like daddy and little girl, a lot of people specifically within that relationship carry a lot of negativity. Whereas like, you look at mommy stuff has been exceedingly popular lately. Like not even in just porn. Like you go on TikToks and it's like, you look at comments and it's like people are calling like women mommy all the time. And it's like, well, that's interesting.
Well, because again, like some of our first fantasies, it's our classmates or it's our friends' mums, they're the women we know. So it's like there's always that one hot mum that comes to school to pick your friends up. So when I was young, I watched almost exclusively MILF porn because like, it was like, I didn't understand it. It was like from a different species compared to like the girls my age. So it's just a fantasy. But and and this is the thing. So like you could have like a mummy little boy or mummy and little girl, and people don't care if it's a older woman, young girl, do they?
No, which is very interesting because that is the dynamic that I have with my partner. And it's like most of the time, if I bring that up around people, there's a lot less easier reaction to it. You know, if I, were to bring up maybe that I had a daddy, though, I think to most people, I think it would be kind of a wince at first, or maybe like a little bit of cringe. And I'm not really sure why that is, honestly.
Yeah, but I experienced this on the podcast. You know, I did an episode about how to date an older woman for like younger guys. And I did the opposite, like an older guy can date a younger girl. And the older man was seen as taking advantage of a young girl. You know, that was the key thing. Like, she doesn't know what she's doing. She's not in control. He's taking advantage of her. He's creepy. There's something wrong with him. He's sick. Whereas the older woman, she said some very controversial things, but it was like, good for her. She's so cool, banging all these young dudes. And
it is very odd.
And it's funny because in society, the more common dynamic is for a man to be older. It's like, that's normal, you know? And yet it's seen as creepy. It's normal, but creepy.
It really is confusing because I feel like maybe the connotation surrounding DDLG specifically keeps other people from maybe looking into it who maybe don't fit, like, being a daddy or being a little girl. Especially maybe non-binary people. But, it's like there's options for that too. Like, you don't have to fit a specific standard. You don't have to be small and thin to be a little. You don't have to be big and tall to be a dom. It really just comes down to how you feel mindset-wise. And do I like this? Does it intrigue me? Does it make me feel good? Does it make my partner feel good? If your partner is involved. But there's just something about the connotation where if it's an older man and a younger woman, then it automatically has to be something is wrong or something is potentially off or something like there's an advantage being taken of.
Do you think the problem is that maybe it offends like both sides of the aisle? Because like usually there's like the kind of Christian right or like the more, feminist, anti-racist, everything left. And I feel like the lefties hate it because it's like exaggerated traditional gender roles.
Yeah.
And I mean, that might be a problem for a lot of people because you're like being hyper feminine, hyper, pink, this, that. And, it is where like you see submissive, they might see victim, Now on the right, it's just like they think pedophiles are everywhere, They're obsessed with pedophiles. Like everyone's a groomer, everyone's grooming, everyone. So it's like there's no one supporting. Like,
it is really interesting to see both sides kind of come together on one thing.
Yeah, this is the one thing they choose to.
Because it's like I've seen like leftist women be like, if you make or create porn, you should die. Wow. And it's like, I'm sorry. Like I'm never in a position to be like, I never tell like other people what to do with their lives because it's just not my place. Like I'm not going to go up to like other women my age and be like, you should join OnlyFans because it's not my place. Now, if you come up to me and you're like, hey, I need advice. Absolutely. I have you. But, these leftist women will be like, porn is bad. If you watch porn, you're like ruining women. You're oppressing us. You're re-oppressing us by making porn for men to enjoy. And it's like, well, number one, I'm not just making it for men. I'm making it for everyone. Number two, I'm doing it willingly. I know what I'm doing. I enjoy what I do. I have fun doing it. Now, do I agree that some people maybe consume porn too much to the point where it's unhealthy? Absolutely. But moderation is everything with everything. a lot of people drink too much coffee a day.
Yeah, must be.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And it's like, I understand the concern to a certain degree. And I understand the concern on like the right side of things, where it's like, this could potentially like, you people are pedophiles. But it's sort of like
they have these
two
family
extremes.
values,
It's
don't
like,
they?
just meet in the middle and look at it for a second.
They have these family values, and for them, family values means protecting their children from everything that they don't like, instead of just letting them find their own path. It's I do get it. Like, I often think, like, if I had children, would I rather have like a son or a daughter? Like, which is the easiest to be? And I can't decide. And would I be open about my job? Would I let them have free access to the internet? Or would I try and like micromanage everything, which they'll find ways around anyway,
Right.
It's like, you got to let them just be, I think. But
a lot of people bring that up to me too. They're like, well, what are you going to do if you have kids? And it's like, okay, well, I'm 19, so I've got a minute.
Yeah.
And two, it's like, it's kind of, we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Mm-hmm.
Because who knows, like, by the time if I have like a kid or not, if I'm still doing what I'm doing, or if I've moved on to other things. I mean, I can't really say.
And it's fine for the Kardashians, and Paris Hilton.
So.
Like,
I mean,
they're fine to make billions from porn, but
us average Joes just can't get away with it, and I'm not sure why.
No. It's because you don't pretend that it was a leak.
Maybe that's what I need to start doing.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the
if you pretend you were taken advantage of, then you're the victim and you can make lots of money. But if you willingly do it, no.
It's just, I really think at the end of the day, I think more people just need to kind of mind their business. I just really feel like that's how it is, Like, if you see something where it's like, I don't really agree with that, scroll. Go meditate. Drink some water.
Because they like to watch. They all watch it. They just like to criticize.
They watch it, but then it's like, then they complain to me about watching it. And it's like, okay, well, like, wait, do you want to watch it or do you not want to watch it? Like, do you need me to point you in the direction of some really good therapy? Like, let me know.
Especially with you, because like the only way they would have found you is if they've been looking at your nudes. So if they're complaining to you, it's like...
Yes. Now, do I think that most people on OnlyFans are really nice and most of them are, courteous? Yes.
Yeah. Most people in the world, actually.
I've had a few oddballs. I've had a few really weird people. And, those are the days where I kind of sit and think, and I'm like, huh.
What kind of things?
For example, I've had someone message me one time, and their entire profile was themed after Adolf Hitler. And it was so weird because they paid for the subscription and then they messaged me. The first sentence was German. So I'm like opening Google Translate because like I'm worried that this guy is like threatening me or something. And he's like, I found your videos on a leak website, but I came here to donate to charity. And it's like, whoa, dude. Like,
well, I mean, that's nice in a way. Like
thanks. Like, I didn't block him, right? Because it's like, thanks for supporting my channel, even though, I mean, I guess you didn't have to if you found all this stuff on like a leak website. And also, can you send it to me so I can take care of it? But it's like, there are just some weird people on the internet. There are just some weird people on the internet. And you have to kind of bulk up a little bit to dealing with those people because when they swing, it hurts.
Yeah, the problem is that most people are nice, like 99.9% of the time. Like, I live in Hungary, and like here we have real Nazis. Like, they're open about it too. And like, I go to football matches, and so you talk to them, and you're talking to a really nice person. You're like, and then they'll start doing like Heil Hitlers in the middle of the football match. And you're like, why are they so nice to me? And like, oh yeah, because I'm white. But
yeah,
it's like really hard to understand.
I'm Polish. My family is Polish. On my dad's side. So it was like, Like, do you not know? Do I have to tell you this?
Yeah.
Like, just weird people. And it's like, you can either be upset about it and let it kind of get at you, or you just let it roll off. Because if you hold on to those things, like if you hold on to that like one rude customer all day, it drains you. It really does, because it makes you feel like, am I doing enough? Like, do other people hate me? Like,
yeah.
But I try to focus on the positive side of things and being like, okay, I'm sure I've made like at least one person come today, so I think it's okay.
Yeah, that's definitely a positive. Yeah, I think most people are really nice, and the bad part of them is usually ignorance rather than evilness, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, let's get into something a bit more fun and finish on a positive. So we talked a lot about DDLG, and I think a lot of people maybe want to try it, but they're not sure how. And like, even me, like, it's like before I did this podcast, I tried so hard to find a DDLG relationship so I could talk about it more easily, but it was impossible. I got like deleted from dating sites. I was getting blocked. Like, girls are like, "What the hell? That's sick." I was like, "Okay, I'm sorry."
No.
Yeah. And so yeah, my reputation on dating sites is gone. I had to like open, and when you get blocked from Tinder, it's hard to open another account.
I think you have to get like another entire new phone, don't you?
App Store, everything. So yeah, my Tinder's gone now.
No.
So like, how do you find a DDLG relationship? Is it something you actually actively look for, or is it something you have to introduce just with a normal partner?
So, like I said, I hate saying this so much, but I really think it depends. Because, like, you know, I came across my partner on Tinder.
Yeah.
So I guess I just got really lucky because, you know, they also do sex work. You know, they're also into the things that I'm into.
Yeah.
So I think part of it is luck.
Or
honestly.
like maybe signals, like maybe I should have been looking for profiles with girls with plushes, and then like...
That seems to be a good take. That seems to be a good take. I think I mentioned Animal Crossing too.
Animal Crossing?
I think so.
What?
I think so. If you see like at least one Hello Kitty, I think you're good.
Okay. So they're the signals, like play Animal Crossing, plushies.
For me, at least. Now, I don't want to offend anyone that also likes Hello Kitty and plays Animal Crossing as like vehemently against this.
Yeah, so
for me
we're just
personally,
trashing Animal Crossing's reputation right now. Their
I
share
guess so.
price just
I guess
dropped.
so. I'm dirtying it.
Yeah.
I'm soiling it.
Yeah, so how do you... Is there a way of finding... Because there is a community, I think, right?
There is a community. It's just more so, you know, since, you know, media and websites are a little bit iffy about it, I think. Places like Discord can be really good if you know where you're looking. You know, getting lucky on Tinder, I guess, or maybe getting not so lucky sometimes.
Yeah.
Going on Instagram and looking through the tags if you can find them. Talking to people, you know, and just real life and seeing if you can find someone where you think, you know, like maybe. But I really do think, for the most part, it comes down to knowing what you want and what you prefer and figuring that out first, because that's the hardest part.
Yeah.
You can't expect to take care of a partner if you don't know what your needs are first and what you prefer. So I recommend that anyone that wants to like start out and get into it, whether you have a partner or not, is figure out your preferences first. What do you feel comfortable with? Like, you know, do I feel comfortable
isn't it?
Giving rules? Do I feel comfortable giving punishments? Do I want to be a dom sometimes and a little some other times? A lot of people switch. That's another thing. You don't have to be one thing all the time. You know, like there's just so much variation in it and how people, you know, put their own little personal aspects on it. And I think that's just what really makes it interesting, is that it's so personal and intimate. And of course, you know, there's the stereotypical presentation of how it is, where it's like, you know, a little girl in like skirts and a big tall guy in a suit or something. But some days it's just, just smooching on the forehead and cuddling. It's not always like spanking and dirty things.
I imagine
the dirty
it in
things
a more,
are fun.
Yeah, I imagine it in
there.
a much more caring way, really. Like, especially with the picture you painted, sounds much more romantic, even. Like,
Yeah, I think it's very intimate, and I think it requires, you to be very in touch with both yourself and your partner, just like with any other BDSM aspect, and feeling comfortable and feeling safe.
Yeah. And what sort of like, because obviously like there's different things that people need to talk about. So like you talked about like rules and rewards and punishments. Like how do you set those? And like, could you give us some like, ideas of
of
things
course.
people
So
can do?
one of my personal favorite things, and I've noticed a lot of littles like this, is sticker books. So, setting tasks, whether they're, do your laundry, make sure you do this, X, Y, Z. And then, either not meeting those, rules, meaning spanking. I really like spanking. I think that's probably like my top sexual punishment. Sitting on rice, putting your knees on rice is one I've seen before, because the rice, I guess, is supposed to make it uncomfortable when you lean onto it. So really anything that you can think of that could be used as a punishment or like as a source of pain and normal BDSM play could be used in this dynamic as an instigator. Alternatively, you can also use pleasure or rewards to, entice. Whether that be like, hey, if you get all of these rewards, you can get vibrator time, you can have an orgasm, you can get a special treat tonight, or, we can watch your favorite cartoon, something like that.
So it can be really simple, small things. It doesn't have to be like
and it just kind of adds up to that overall kind of lifestyle like we were talking about earlier, where it's like, do you do these things throughout the day? Maybe just one day out of the week that you try it, maybe once a week, maybe twice a week, maybe once a month.
In a way,
for me, it's definitely a little bit more daily.
Yeah, in a way, it sounds like it'll sound nerdy, but it sounds like the gamification of like your sex life. You're like
it is a little bit.
Yeah, like those builder games on phones that just like give you the dopamine hits of like collecting or losing a battle or something, and you're like kind of incorporating that into your sex, well, not into your sex life, into like your romantic life, right? So it's like a way of like, in a way, you're giving like more attention, you're being more attentive. Like, it's interesting. It's like, yeah.
I like the way you put it earlier, where it was like D&D, like role playing. I don't play D&D. I play Gloomhaven, so I don't really know like the full aspect of D&D. But I do play tabletop games. So I don't know if there's like a connotation between people who do like BDSM and tabletop games, but I feel like there's
it's huge,
a very big part of the community that does both.
Yeah, I think there's two types of BDSM. There's like the people that are really into it, and then there's everybody else who maybe incorporates aspects of BDSM into their sex life naturally, and they don't have all the rules and etiquette. I think the BDSM community does it a lot better in terms of like safety and consent, and like really pushing pleasure to like some unexpected places. But for most other people, I think that's quite intimidating, because there's so many rules. It's like, how do I even start, and how do I not make a mistake or feel stupid? And I think
that's another thing too, is like, it's okay to make mistakes. Like, you are going to make mistakes. You won't find things out for a little bit until you've done like research or dug into things personally. I mean, reading about it, looking at podcasts. I mean, even reaching out to porn stars and asking questions. All kinds of resources at your disposal. You just have to know where to look for them and kind of get your hands dirty a little bit. And I understand that that's like very scary at first, like reaching out to people and asking questions, especially about something so vulnerable and personal. But never once in my life have someone like approached me with a question about it, and I've been like, oh, well, you're annoying, or this is like a dumb question. Never. I'm always like, I'm happy to help. If I can like find you other resources, like please let me know, because there is such like a negative stigma around kink, especially DDLG, where it's like, I want people to know that like it's really not that bad, and that, you know, it helps a lot of people. And a lot of people use it in their relationships, knowingly and unknowingly too. I mean, even if it's just like, you know, cuddling and watching cartoons at night, like you are using that dynamic just a teensy bit, whether you know it or not.
Yeah, I for me, the whole thing sounds so wholesome. At least it's like, I can't, especially having spoken to you, I can't imagine someone having a bad connotation of it, because it sounds like a normal relationship, only extra attentive, extra cuddly, extra everything. Plus, you're both making loads of effort with clothes and scenarios, and
You're right.
making so much time for each other. It's like most relationships should aspire for that, if anything. So yeah, I get a really wholesome vibe from it. On the practical side, like maybe I'm just talking about myself, but I think a problem that a lot of guys have with role play is getting into character. Like we often feel like cringe or like bursting out laughing when we say something. And guys are notoriously bad at dirty talk, for example. I think because we're so basic sometimes. We're not as creative. We get embarrassed so easily, I think. So like how does like the talking work for the daddy dom, for example? Like what kind of things can you say to like get the mood going or like create that environment?
For beginners, I would definitely like recommend like learning to talk outside of sex first. Because if you just like go right into it and like you're like, I'm just gonna like wing something, right?
Yeah.
And then if you fumble, you're gonna feel extra bad.
Yeah.
And kind of awkward, like, oh, well, maybe I don't want to try this again since, you know, I messed up so bad the first time. But it's a lot easier if you approach the person that you're talking to, like prior to sex, just in a normal conversation, and be like, are there any phrases that make you uncomfortable? I personally, I don't really like being called baby girl. There's just something about it where it just feels kind of off to me. I just don't feel like it really sticks to me. Baby, perfectly fine. Little girl, fine. Princess, 10 out of 10. And it's the same with like, you know, titles as a dom as well, because it's like, you don't just have to be daddy. You can be master or sir or like, you know, mommy, miss, ma'am, anything, professor. A personal preference, you know?
Yeah. I think names are important actually for getting into character. And yeah, the communication part is so important. I think it's right just to maybe focus on the things that make your partner uncomfortable and not say theirs.
Right, root those out.
Yeah. Okay. I think we've gone through everything. I was going to do like a separate myths part, but I think we covered it all, didn't we?
I'm more than happy to get back into it if you'd like.
So yeah, I just wanted to like, maybe we'll do it as like quick fire because that's quite fun. So
okay.
We talked about some of these already, but I just think let's do like a bit of a myth busting section for people that have problems with DDLG. So first myths. DDLG is just sexualizing children.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No. Because again, it just goes back to, you know, it's two consenting adults or multiple, you know, whatever, one. As long as they're consenting adults, that's it. You know, consenting adults, safe, sane, done. And
they're not children. The most important
Yeah, and they're
thing.
not children.
It's incest.
I don't know how to explain this one because it just feels like it would be so obvious that it's not incest if you're having sex with someone that's not related to you.
Yeah. Just this confusion over the word daddy, isn't it?
Yeah, because it's like, I feel like you don't have to role play that you're related. I think a lot of people maybe have to kind of like, they think that they have to do that where it's like, okay, I have to pretend that like you are my child. And it's like, you don't necessarily have to do that. You don't have to, you know,
Yeah,
It's not that deep.
And people should know that daddy is just a word of authority. Like, before it got uncool as a word, a lot of rappers had the word daddy in their name.
Yeah.
Not because they want to be everybody's parent. Okay. It's just people with mummy and daddy issues.
Now, I know this is kind of funny for me to say this because, earlier I mentioned I do have those things. But that being said, I also know plenty of people in the community who have perfectly healthy relationships with their parents. Do some people get into it because of trauma? Absolutely. But there's just the same amount of people that get into it with normal family, if not more.
Yeah, I just don't think anything's correlated or, yeah. Okay, and the final one, this is my favorite. So people that are into DDLG just don't want to grow up and want to avoid responsibility.
So I think this one is the funniest for me because this isn't my room. I've just decorated it for the setup with plushies. But my room, if you go into it, it's a bunk bed. I have pink stuff everywhere. I have coloring books. I'm really into miniatures. I love miniatures. I love doll houses. They're just so cool to me. So my room is very pink and innocent and childish. But it's like, also, if you go in there, I could be doing my taxes. Like, I'm paying my bills. Like, I'm being an adult. Like, it's not like every day I'm like out in la la land, like escaping my problems.
Yeah.
I think it's just, everyone escapes to a certain point, whether it be video games, whether it be scrolling on TikTok. Plenty of people just do things that make them feel comfortable and good. And I think DDLG is essentially just that. It's something, that you can participate in that could make you feel comfortable and good. Just like anything else. And just like anything else, it requires moderation. And, just being an adult with common sense, I feel, is enough for that.
Yeah. I don't know if this is your experience, but my experience with submissive people is, like, whether they're men or women or whatever, is it's often the people with the most responsibility that enjoy being submissive the most.
It's true.
It's like the only adult baby I know is a CEO of quite a big company. And that's cool. It's escape,
that's so cool.
He just likes to turn off and just have no responsibility at all.
I think that's why my preferred time is at night too, because, that's when I kind of, wind down and kind of let myself relax. Because, I live with 3 people. I have, my partner and 2 roommates, and I cook the most out of all of us.
Nice.
So, and I clean a lot too. So it's like, doing that, studying, working, things like that. Sometimes at the end of the day, it's like, I just want to not have any responsibility. I don't want to have to carry that weight on my shoulders all day. Just a little break or reprieve, Yeah,
and your situation is absolutely the opposite because you have huge responsibility because you don't have, like you said, parents to take care of you anyway. So
right.
It's all on you. So I understand wanting that, not escape, just something different.
Yeah. Just something to kind of relax and, take your mind off of the things of the day. And I think a lot of people just tend to think that maybe people overindulge in that, which does happen, unfortunately, with, every other indulgence, but.
Yeah. Like you can get addicted to Netflix somehow.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean anything. Just doesn't mean you're lazy. Just maybe means you haven't found something better worth doing,
Right.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's everything. But I think just to wrap up, you've really painted a good picture of DDLG for me. I honestly thought, even though I went in with an open mind, I thought it was going to be more controversial and there were going to be things that make me wince, think, oh, is that good? Should that be okay? Because But honestly, everything you said just sounds so wholesome, so healthy as a relationship, that I just find it really hard to believe that someone could disagree with a DDLG relationship once they understand what's involved. Because it sounds like how a relationship should be in many ways. Like I wish my previous relationships had that much care and attention in them, right? Like, no, I mean, some of them have, but not all of them, right? So it sounds very idealized as a relationship. Like, maybe some of it's acting and not quite real, but it's a nice thing to act.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I think just people get caught, kind of on how they perceive it as first because they don't understand it. And it's like, I don't expect people to like go out and jump right into it.
Yeah.
I just kind of want people to not fear it, I suppose, or like think that it's like inherently just a bad thing, because it's not. I mean, I enjoy it. I think it benefits my relationship incredibly, and I think it does the same for plenty of other people, and I think that right there is worth something.
Yeah, I would try a DDLG relationship, but like more importantly, like I think having spoken to you, I'll probably incorporate some elements into my normal relationships, because like, why can't I just reward a partner for something nice? When she does something good, reward her, It's kind of obvious.
It's fun.
But yeah,
I think
it's
a lot
really
of people
fun.
forget that it's supposed to be fun and kind of playful.
Yeah.
They're because it's BDSM, it's got to be dark and it's got to be scary.
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be codified. I think so many elements can be incorporated without even thinking about them too much.
Right.
So yeah, that's probably what I'll be doing. And what about you? Do you have any like plans for the future? Like, will you be doing anything on your OnlyFans or?
I definitely would like to have like a setup in one of the areas I have in my room. I got this like little princess tent, and I think it's so cute. The issue is I'm trying to figure out how I can film in it because the opening is kind of small. But I think it's just such like a cute little set. I would love to make use of it. I just got to figure out how I can make it work.
Yeah. And do you want to tell people where they can find you and like how to get in touch?
You can find me on OnlyFans at Pixie Berrie, Berry spelled with an IE at the end. And you can find me on Reddit under the same username. And that's really the only two places that I'm on.
Yeah, you're kind of a little bit hidden, I must admit.
I know. A lot of the promoting that I do is internally on OnlyFans, like with other models and stuff. Just because I kind of like that security of like, these people are kind of used to being on OnlyFans. They know like, what's expected, like how it's going to go down. And then, of course I get people in from my Reddit who are new to OnlyFans and maybe need like a little bit more, time and explanation on how the site works. So that's like my two big groups, I would say. Yeah, because I see like the engagement you get on your Reddit posts and it's huge. Yeah, and it is a lot. Keep thinking like, why isn't this girl like everywhere? Yeah, it's. I know. I tell people my like Reddit following a lot, and they're like, "Why are you not making more money?" And it's like, well, number one, that's not like my biggest priority. And two, it requires an immense amount of energy to like post every day and make content every day, especially with chronic illness and working and studying on top of that. So I think that also kind of maybe hinders my publicity. But I'm very happy with all the people that I have right now, because it's like, it's more than I could have ever imagined of reaching. I mean, if you had told me, back when I first started Reddit, like, hey, you're going to reach almost like 100K followers, I'd be like, you're shitting me. Like, you're lying to me. You're so humble. But yeah. It's so interesting to me, because it's like, I was such a dorky person growing up. Like, I never really like thought I would end up in a situation where it's like, okay, people like are scared to talk to me. Like, people are like nervous to talk to me. It's like, I never want anyone to feel like that, because it's like, no, please don't be like, no, let a person talk to me. So that's why people like you so much, because like you're very beautiful, and thank you.
but it's like you don't quite believe it yet, you know? So you're very humble. And
That
you're just
makes
like,
people,
one of
it
us.
makes people mad. I've had like people get mad at me before when they, like they compliment me and I'm like, oh, like thanks. I guess I don't really agree with you, but like thanks. And they're like, no, you can't say that. I'm like, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. But so much of like beauty is just self-perception, isn't it? And like as the confidence increases, you know, it can be bad as well. Like if your ego gets too big, it can not be the best look. But I don't think you have anything to worry about.
Thank you.
But yeah, so thanks so much for coming on the show. And yeah, I learned a lot and definitely destroyed some of my stereotypes and preconceptions. So,
well, I'm glad. Like I said, my whole kind of thing is, not wanting people to like be scared or like,
yeah, we are
feel
so
like
approachable and so
such a bad thing.
chill.
Like I don't want it to be scary. I want it to be accessible because the idea that it could help just one person, maybe with their relationship or how they feel about themselves, or even just discovering something about your sex life, that's, like I said, that's worth something to me.
It's really sweet. So thanks so much. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I had a really good time.